Good morning, Joe Skibby with Beets, Beds, and Browns. Good morning. Good morning. Good. Three, two, one. Good morning. Good morning, Joe Skibby. Morning, Joe Skibby with Beets, Beds, and Browns. You're here for the Get Your Garden Started virtual event. Make sure you're in the right class today, April 10th from 9 to 10:30 a.m. We're going to walk through some of the basics, a little hand holding as we always like before we start something new, and hopefully take away some of the fear or some of the myths around black thumbs and not being able to grow. So without any further time, go ahead with introductions here. Again, Joe Skibby. I started Beets, Beds, and Browns over 3 years ago through 5 seasons of interviews with emerging hip hop artists, commercial and homestead garden interests, as well as bourbon whiskey distillers. Beets, Beds, and Browns has evolved to take on events, take on education and thought leadership in the growing space, as well as advocacy for growth, learning, and consumption of the things that I'm passionate about, and I hope that you are too. So we're going to jump right in today with, why are we starting a garden? There's so many reasons that somebody would start a garden that I couldn't begin to list all of them here, but I think most pressing in today's environment are rising grocery costs. Um, companies are selling less of a product while increasing prices and playing tricks on us in the grocery store. They're using more and more commercial ag products, which are heavily laden with chemicals, and even further looking down the road, they're harming the environment. So let's say you're starting just for those reasons. I think there's more than enough. End up with a little more money in your pocket, eat healthily, and eliminate those chemicals that only a little bit isn't bad for you, but they're in everything that we eat. So trying to get away from those, trying to get away from the commercial grocery store and those inner aisles that all end up being less nutritious and more harmful for us as we look more consciously at what we eat. Maybe you're just here to start a new hobby. You need a reason to relax, get away from the laptop, get away from the kids, do what you need to do. Gardening is one of those things that has multiple benefits. Obviously, mental health and wellness, that feeling of zen as you rub some mint or other botanicals in between your hands and take a deep breath. The time spent out in nature, listening to the birds, watching the butterflies, seeing the insects crawling through your garden and the environment that you've created, it is all beneficial. I know I'm never happiest when unless there's dirt under my fingernails. So I really enjoy the time I spend in the garden, and I'm always learning. So I don't feel that it's a static hobby, something where, I'm not one of these guys on vacation that go sit on a beach and unwind. That usually just puts my mind into hyperdrive. So you're active, messing and gammon, as me and my wife call it, but you're able to do something active with your hands and have productive output and continue learning. Maybe you're just looking to escape from work. I know my garden is my 15-minute walk every day in between meetings when I'm working from home. Oftentimes work is busy, demand oriented. There's maybe very little positive payoff. All of those things are delivered from a garden. And if that's why you're here, we absolutely welcome you. Perhaps avoiding chemicals and pesticides is your reason for growing your own food. That's absolutely one of the reasons that we started growing. My brother suffered from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is, again, famously attributed to the Roundup pesticide. Not sure that's why he got it. Not sure that's the only reason, but they're begging for class action suits for people who've had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that he suffered from. I was able to be a bone marrow donor, and again, we both are avid growers and look to eat more, consume more healthy food without chemicals and things that are grown in home. Maybe you have early onset diabetes. Maybe you've got a few extra pounds. Maybe you're looking to eliminate ultra processed foods. They're all in the news. Ultra processed foods, or UPFs, are really just things that we were intended to eat minimally as a treat. And now they end up being a large majority of some people's diets. Most of the food aid programs do not contain fresh produce. Oftentimes they're packed with ultra processed foods. And again, if your decision is not eating or eating ultra processed foods, we're all going to make the same choice. But with a little advanced planning, you can eliminate consumption of those ultra processed foods with minimal space. As you can see in the garden beds behind us, that's a 4x6 plot. We're growing an immense amount of food in these beds. This was a prior iteration of one of our gardens, but you don't need a lot of space. We're going to cover that today. Whether you've got a coffee can, window planter, small patio, or you've got acres to grow, starting a garden, again, has so many benefits, including exercise and time outside, right? If you're looking to get more vitamin D, looking to be in the sun, looking to be out in the yard to have more interaction with your neighbors in your community, gardening is a great place to start that. Not only seed swaps, but food sharing and bringing things to local not-for-profits or pantries that accept fresh produce, because you all end up eating more when somebody's growing. What is it? Teach a man to fish and somebody gets dinner. teach a gardener to grow a zucchini and the whole neighborhood gets zucchini, right? So let's all manifest that and live our best life in doing that. So let's assume you've already made the decision to garden. That's why you're here today watching the Get Your Garden Started seminar. And let's cover some of the things that you might want to consider or might want to understand before just go ahead and throwing seed pack into the ground, right? Which may fail, it may succeed. It's really a roll of the dice for any of us, no matter how experienced, as we try and manifest that Jack and the Beanstalk magic, right? Throw some magic seeds into the ground and out sprouts some food. We see here in the visual some early emergent seedlings, probably pre-true leaf, right? The third leaf, as well as some different varieties of lettuce here that have been in the ground for a couple of weeks. There is no time frame. It's if you're a baker versus a chef, right? A chef grabs a pinch and throws it in and adds till it tastes good. A baker is measuring, etc. There's space for both of you guys in gardening. You can be precise. You can monitor soil pH, right? The acidity in the soil. You can measure the amounts of water that create the greatest produce. You can start a spreadsheet for growing. We are some of the more informal gardeners and want to limit barriers as much as possible. This is not we're not splicing genes to bioengineer what we grow and eat, right? We're literally putting seeds in the dirt, seeing if it grows, and hoping to recreate that next year with all of the growing, increasing challenges that come with growing your own food, because every year it's been something different. And I would say we've been growing for just over 15 years now. We started in our first plot, 4x6, in the backyard of our first house in North Texas. So obviously a completely different growing environment, different challenges in terms of water and soil makeup. And, we ended up losing the whole garden on a weekend trip when it was over 90, and we didn't schedule anybody to water because we thought it was a short period of time. So as you continue to grow and learn, and we'll cover some of these things later, you'll deal with fungus, you'll deal with bacteria, you'll deal with insects, you'll deal with multiple seedlings in a start growing and how to split those things. And those are all things that we'll talk about briefly today throughout today's presentation. But again, 5 W's. It's thank you, Mr. Morrison, junior high literature class. Who, what, when, where, why, and you can throw in how. But again, who's going to be managing this plot, and what do you need to cater to for their needs? Are they young and spry and can handle straight planting into the ground? Are they like myself, middle-aged and beyond, and need to be able to have an elevated bed, a raised garden bed? Or are there other considerations in terms of special needs or things of that nature that you have to account for someone? What are you going to be planting? Or is there things that you buy from the store that you would like to see an increase in naturally grown things? It took us years. We're finally looking at onions, garlic, basil, oregano, so that we can make an entire organic sauce and be able to can that. So the tomatoes, the basil, the oregano, the garlic, onions are something we eat a lot of. Potatoes are something we eat a lot of. So we've started to grow those. Really, the decision is personal. Maybe you just want some fresh cut greens for a salad once a week, and a warm tomato in the middle of summer to slice on toast. All of those are reasons. And of course, your reason is personal and not something you have to share, but definitely something that you can find community in as well. When is unique to your location. When you're starting a garden, it's good to look at the hardiness zones. So from north to south, wherever you are in the world, there are growing zones. If you remember junior high science class, Mr. K, thank you, that it's warmer near the equator, right? So as you move further north, you have a different planting time. We're zone 5B in the Chicagoland region, and even have some microclimates off the lake in Northwest Indiana that makes for some different growing conditions. Again, it's all tied to your uh, lowest temperature and last frost date, and then they can recommend when to put things in the ground. Or even when to start things under LED lights, which we've done for the last couple of years and continue to expand our early growing, not only with the LED lights, but also with a small hoop house that we've made out of PVC and documented on the TikTok channel at Beats Beds Browns. Who, what, where, when, why? Why are you growing? Are you looking to incorporate fresh organic food into your household? Are you looking to grow to be able to give gifts around the holidays? We have a ginger mint that we enjoy throughout winter with the cold season. So we harvest that a couple times throughout the year, dry it, put it in Tupperware, and we can put that into a tea sleeve or um, a tea diffuser to be able to drink fresh ginger mint tea throughout the year. There's other things that we grow and store in dehydrated form, cans, fermentation, etc. All things to consider. If you're just going to eat raw tomatoes like an apple out of the garden, that's pretty easy, or an onion for that matter. But your why is often important. Then we get into the how. Eventually, you have to understand how you're going to accomplish this. Again, in the ground, raised beds. Are you going to do more of a native landscape with flowers intermixed with plants and veggies? Or are you just going to do plants and veggies? Where's that going to be? What's the sun exposure? From a south-facing perspective, you always want to make sure you're not starting a bed that's going to be in shade unless you're growing shade-driven plants, right? So placement is always a consideration. And then how? There's so many different ways to grow, right? If container gardening, you could put potatoes successfully in a 5-gallon bucket. You can put an herb garden in a coffee can. You can save Tupperware like we do or packaging and end up having pots, right? Or you can actually use the 4-inch pots, or we've got some 6-panel trays here as well. Available for sale at beatsbedsbrowns.com. If you're shopping for your garden stuff, please check us out. Support. Again, our goal is to give away a free seed kit, 100,000 free seed kits in the next 10 years. We want to get people growing their own food, overcoming their initial fears and concerns, and realizing it's something we all can do. And whether you're a naturalist, whether you're a homesteader, whether you're a prepper, there's always reasons to grow your own food, store your own seed, and who knows what the future holds. But the joy, mental health, and wellness that comes from managing your own garden, growing your own food is something that we heavily invest in. Square foot gardening. So let's say you're not Tupperware, coffee can, window planter, but you've got a 4x6 space. Square foot gardening is a concept where if you were to separate that 4x6 garden into 1-foot squares, right, 24 square feet, so 4 vertically, 6 horizontally, each seedling would take up a 1-foot space in the center of that 1-foot square. And that allows for growth and allows for space to mulch around, as well as make for easy weeding with the space in between those plants. There's no-till gardening, right? We didn't really talk about prepping the soil, but we turn the soil in our raised beds. We create furrows, peaks and valleys, so that we can plant seed in and then have a space to water. Some people advocate for no-till gardening, so they don't disturb the dirt year over year, other than to put the seedling in. And that allows for all of the root from the prior year to keep the soil loose, as well as provide pathways for new growth and for water consumption. The water has a place to go. The roots are going to follow those pathways, and it's high efficiency. Oftentimes in the areas that we're in, Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland, there's soil issues, and you don't want to plant directly into the soil. No-till, being able to build up that soil with wood chips or dirt or compost, is a great path for that because you don't have to dig into the soil that maybe has commercial contamination or industrial contamination that you don't want to consume in your purpose of trying to escape chemicals and non-organic foods. Again, buckets, containers. We've got a dozen or so milk jugs that you can cut in half, fill a third of the way with dirt, and put some seeds in there, duct tape it up. Don't put a cap on it and let rain naturally come in, especially for some of our native plants that need to be cold striated, which means the seeds have to be exposed to temperatures under 32 degrees. We set those outside, they self-water. You put holes in the bottom and the roots will go and find water either from the rain or they'll go into the grass and capture dew and whatnot. We can use egg cartons. Just a little bit of dirt, throw a seed on top, make sure it's watered, and you'll get seedlings sprouted from that. Then you can transfer into a 4-inch or larger pot. And then I showed you earlier the flats and trays and pots and grounds. Again, raised beds. I'm a fairly tall individual. I'm over 6 foot. So to be able to have something where I don't have to bend over is something that I appreciate. There's handicap accessible gardens that people can wheel chairs underneath. Seniors, non-mobility folks can get into that as well. And raised beds, you can build them so the whole base isn't dirt. It's an area for those carts to go underneath. So that's really appreciated as well. Designing, I've seen wonderful pictures. I've seen incredible spreadsheets. I'm a grab and go kind of guy. So depending upon what's taking, what we're taking from the indoor grow lights under LEDs into our hoop houses. We have two 15 by 20 foot beds. I'll show you an example of later in the presentation, but that is definitely an area where if it's been successful indoors, we've prepared it for the sun. We've kept it out a couple hours a day in increasing time. Then we put it outside and it's in available space. We don't have a master plan. We're trying to work better with height. So you don't have your corn in the far south facing spot. So it shades everything behind it and inhibits the growth of those items. So trying to understand the height is something we'll accommodate. We don't necessarily plan for, but hey, this is ready. Let's put it in the bed. This is where it should go. Is really as simple as it needs to be. And then learn your lessons year over year. We're fortunate enough that this isn't a subsistence garden. This is a hobby garden that we're sharing as well as canning as much as we can and seed saving as much as we can to share with others. So there are, if it's a subsistence garden, please take some time to plan that, understand the heights, the maximum heights, the different time in ground before harvest, germination rates, and make sure that you're planning for that accordingly. And then what to grow. We try everything. Again, being in between zone 5B and microclimates here close to the lake, if it works and it's an heirloom, which means that we can save the seed, then we're going to continue that. We're going to save the seed, not buy it. Moving forward, buy something else and see if that works. And then over time, that will be expertly adapted to our zone and our conditions, right? In the raised bed, with the watering schedule that we undertake, with the sun exposure, with the placement, all of those things lead to specialization in the seed world and things that will be uniquely positioned to grow in our area. Oh, all right, so this is a chart from the Master Garden Extension, and this is talking about cold hardiness, right? So we've got hardy, semi-hardy, warm season crops, and very tender, and the temperatures that go along with that. So here in zone 5B, it's not advised to be putting plants into the ground in advance of Mother's Day, May 15th, to be safe. I think last year we had a warm spell the couple weeks before. So I had stuff in the ground outside of the high tunnel 2 weeks in advance. We had stuff under the high tunnel in March 15th. And again, if you're looking at growing outside and putting stuff in advance of your cold hardiness in ground date, a PVC cold tunnel, rebar pounded into the ground, half inch or PVC and then a bar with U-bolts across the top, cover it with 6 mil plastic, and you've got a mimicked high tunnel. So that is something that allows you to extend the growing season. And we're trying to get 3 turns now at the level that we're at, where we get 3 different sets of crops in, rotating in and out, growing indoors and transitioning out to be able to grow and eat as much during those grow seasons as well as store into the cold as much as possible. So again, starting in a 4x6 plot to that point took 15 years, but again, we started, and to be able to start in a coffee can or a sea salt cashew container, put some holes in the bottom, put some dirt in it, throw some seed. We'll demonstrate that later. But obviously, these are all things you can grow in, as well as the more traditional pots, again, with holes at the bottom. The holes at the bottom are important when you're growing so that the moisture doesn't reside in the bottom and create mold or fungus. That mold and fungus is, again, a natural part of compost, of dirt, of things. It's in there, but you don't want it to take over. It will create an environment that's inhospitable to growth. So again, I'm not going to read these charts to you. It's just different things can go in the ground at different times. And there is cold hardiness, that some things can survive a couple overnight freezes at temperatures below 32 for a couple hours. Some things a little bit more so. Some things, below 50 or below 60 is going to be problematic and potentially wipe out the entire crop. So you don't want to plant those things early in the season until the ground is at a consistent temperature above 50, 60, 70 degrees. All right. So who, what, when, where, why, some considerations, what to plant, and then getting your soil ready, right? So we are composters, and that doesn't mean we don't buy potting soil around spring. We absolutely do. We augment our beds with compost. So we throw all of our organic table scraps, newspaper, cardboard, egg cartons, brown paper bags into this compost bin, which has chicken wire on the front and back and firm walls on either side, and it does have a lid. It's out in the elements, so it gets wet, gets dry. You want to have green, so fresh grass, clippings, leaves, etc. Leaves gets into brown, coffee grounds, fresh from the coffee pot, you can throw in there. And then you want to turn it for a compost bed this big. You want to turn probably 3 or 4 times a year. Again, on a scale of soil health, when you're looking at clay, right, digging into the ground, maybe 2 inches below your topsoil with the grass in it, you're going to end up hitting clay in most areas. Clay is dense, heavy. There's not a lot of pathways created by roots or worms or other insects. And it's not a very good substrate to grow in. That's not very nutrient rich. There's not a lot of organic material, and it doesn't sustain life very well. And then you get into a progression of potting soil, which is a mix oftentimes of peat, vermiculite, and other nutrients. So it's great for getting things to germinate, to break through the ground as a seedling. And then as you're looking to augment your dirt, there's different things that you can add. We typically add compost, right? So it's eggshells, it's banana peels, it's onion, garlic tops, the skin from those items, it's any peels or rinds from cantaloupe, watermelon, etc., coffee grinds, grass clippings. This hunk of dry brown goods here is weeds that we took from last year and didn't break down. The mix of the compost needs to be wet, needs to be warm, needs to be protected from the outside elements so that the earth can break down and all the bug activity can generate heat, as well as the bacteria feeding on other bacteria and creating that environment to break it down and turn it into good black dirt straight out of the compost bin. And a good way to, again, add to clay soil that might not be broken up is compost, different items, bone meal, sand as well. Sandy, loamy soil is another way real loose. You think you can't even make a ball of it if you squeeze it. Good black dirt is going to have enough moisture, and you're going to be able to squeeze it in your hand. It's going to be able to retain its shape as you open your hand. Sandy, loamy soil is going to crumble. Clay, you're not even going to be able to break down. And again, when you're looking at adding, you can add to the top, you can add mixed into the soil, and there's things to identify specific solutions. Again, we're not measuring the pH, we're not trying to impact things at that level. We're putting in all this good stuff, putting it on top every year, and putting the seedlings into that soil, maybe an inch or two below. So as it rains, it enters in and feeds the plant throughout its life. So here's, again, in bed, we talk about mulching and weed prevention. So underneath these leaves and grass clippings is the compost that we put on this year, last year, et cetera. Over the fall, we cover, even through the growing season, again, whether we're looking at square foot or we're every 6 inches or whatnot, we tend to pack them in pretty tight. That's maybe a fault on our end, and one of the things that we're constantly considering, but it's also, these leaves and grass clippings are also a wonderful weed barrier. You see nothing's really popping through this grass clipping and leaves, and that eliminates the need to weed. Otherwise, weeding would be just about a daily activity for any garden, but especially one of this size outside, with the amount of insect and bird traffic we have as the natural environment. So the first thing we do after we get our seedlings into the ground is surround them with a carpet of grass. And then over the time, we may compost some of those grass clippings. That fills up the compost bin, and then we sprinkle some in. 2 to 4 inches is great for a weed barrier. And as that compresses, that's going to be able to retain more water. The moisture is going to trickle down through that, slow water your plants, and then also be able to keep the weeds at bay, which again is one of the most tenuous tasks of any garden. We want to keep this fun, right? So here's an image of some things that we've grown in the raised beds. Again, let me get this right. Cucumbers. I always call them pickles, but cucumbers, a baby with a flower at the end that is what is pollinated to then grow into this ultimate canning cucumber. So we do grow dill as well as cucumbers to be able to make pickles every year. And that's one of the things we enjoy. We think it's beautiful as it climbs through the different cow panel here. And then these are turnips. So purple top turnips. If you're a fan of root vegetables, it has many characteristics, maybe a little firmer than a potato, and you can cube these up and make a breakfast hash, or you can steam or boil these and turn it into an extra side at dinner. They're fantastic. And then while they're growing, you see these big greens here. That's one of the things that we like to break down with olive oil and garlic and have as a side as well. It's delicious in soups and stews as well. And again, the nutrients that you're going to get from this far outweighs anything that you can get at the grocery store. We are, I'm sure people will counter this, but we're one of the least snobby people we know, and I won't eat store-bought greens anymore. I'm spoiled to be able to have these, and some broccoli greens behind it. You chop it up, you put a little hoisin sauce on the broccoli greens. It's fantastic. And as I mentioned, olive oil, garlic with the turnip greens, put it into stews. It's so delicious. And even if it's boiled into a soup or a stew, it still has a different flavor than the wilty things that you potentially get from the grocery store. Again, we understand, wintertime, fall time, we're not growing, we have to do it too. But if you can avoid that even for a couple months, we think it's very worth it. So this, again, is our raised bed. Filled to dirt, about 4 foot tall, 3 foot tall, and then has a element of protection around it. We do get deer in our property, and again, this was a monumental task to fill that with over 20 yards of dirt. You see the opening there on the right, and but again, this allows us for the flexibility not to have to squat and bend and kneel on the ground, and supposedly limits some of the stress on our back. It is one of the more beneficial ways if you have height or any other secure concerns that being able to get that in. And again, for Zone 5B in the Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland area, we're putting things into the bed with no other consideration around May 15th. These are the cold hardiness zones. And again, you see here, Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana, they're looking at the average minimum temperature between -10 and -20 throughout northwest and northern Illinois, and then 0 through -10 throughout Northwest Indiana with that little microclimate there. This is just indicating, when you can plant and how soon you can put stuff into the ground. For our zone, again, it's May 15th. I'm going to go ahead and put, watering, whether you're hose watering, whether you're underground hose, trickle gardening, a sprinkler system. We use watering cans. And again, you want to make sure to spread the pressure of the water so you're not wiping out dirt or damaging plants. So we find a watering can just like this is sufficient. And when we're growing indoors, you see these plants here moving. They have a fan directly on them. And these are pulled from underneath the LEDs for ease of watering. And then we'll put these all back under LEDs with the fan facing on them. We started these, some as many as 5 weeks ago. There's onions, dill, marigolds, arugula, mustard greens. We have some lettuce as well. But once a week, we fill the trays with the flats and make sure that there's enough water standing on the bottom that they can feed from the bottom. And they're doing pretty good. We take these outside for walks when it's sunny, going to be above 32 for a couple days in a row. And then since we're not quote unquote approved to put them outside into the dirt, we'll bring them inside and take them outside again. But again, the primary, you don't want to wash away the seed and you don't want to damage the seedling. So that's our primary concern here with water. All right. The third consideration is pest and disease prevention. So, maybe you're okay putting some things in the ground that aren't organic, that are approved. And again, organic, I use that by my definition, which is pesticide free. Organic, USD organic at the store is not pesticide free. They're approved pesticides, whether they're derived from natural components or whether they're plant derived. These are a couple things that we've found that, again, it's to be in the other shoes of someone who's growing. I was a card carrying member of the no chemicals, no matter what. And then you see a whole crop wiped out by cucumber beetles, and you're like, man, there's got to be something I can do to save this crop to make sure I get my cucumbers this year, because you really do, after a couple of years of depending on them. And, we make cucumber water, cucumber crackers. My wife eats them in salads and dip. And that cucumber water is amazing. Blend up cucumbers, pour water in the blender, strain it. The flavor of that, you maybe have gotten that at a spa or your hairdresser. It's that magnified. Add a little lime, maybe a little cranberry juice. It's now it's a sport hydration drink. Look it up. Cucumbers are great for energy and hydration. And then the pulp we can dry and make crackers and sprinkle that on top of our salad, add a little flaxseed, sunflower seed, etc. So we try and waste as little as possible because we understand the value of growing without chemicals. And again, these are a few things that we've made an accommodation for to be able to battle some of those pests. So diatomaceous earth is a powder form. You can sprinkle it or mix it with water and spray it on. It's fossilized diatoms. So, whales eat diatoms. There's millions, probably more than billions in the sea. They are tiny aquatic organisms. As it comes in powder form, it's 100% pet and human safe, but it's ground up shells. So as insects take that into their digestive tract, not good for them. As you can imagine, that would be incredibly unpleasant. Neem oil, again, is our kind of last defense. We use BT again, which below there is a biological pesticide. So it's a natural occurring element and it eats through the skin of caterpillars. So it's a biopesticide, not toxic to humans or other mammals. And then as a last resort, we use neem oil, again, which contains oil from the neem plant. It is again, safe on a wider range of bugs, and that's about as extreme as we get. There are other considerations. Again, if you're year over year, you're having the same problem and these solutions aren't working, you can look at companion planting. We're going to be introducing marigolds this year in between some of the plants. And I think it's pyrethrum naturally occurring in marigolds. That's one of the commercial pesticides that they develop. They've again, manufactured pyrethrum or excluded it from the plant source, extruded. And that's one of the ways that you can combine that as companion planting with that. Onions and garlic. We plant garlic underneath our fruit trees as a pest aversion model. And then after you've exhausted some of the companion planting and or more traditional ways, you can look at predatory insects. Some people are buying ladybugs to eat aphids. Some people have the tomato hornworm and end up introducing the brachioid wasp, which is predatory and actually plants its seed into the tomato hornworm, and then its offspring feeds on the tomato hornworm. And there's little white like caterpillars off, if you've ever seen that in a garden. And then creating native plant landscapes for natural predators. We have bat houses. We have native landscaping that attracts birds, and we're considering installing an owl house, and then a number of bird houses throughout the property where they can crisscross. You're attracting beneficial insects to handle predatory insects or non-native invasive insects. Birds can come and then feed on those insects as well. Now you're creating an environment where nature can foster. And again, the native plants is a piece of that. So if you're on social media at Beats Beds Browns, check us out. We've got on this edition of Friend or Foe, the assassin bug, a beneficial garden insect preying on pest bugs like aphids, caterpillars, and beetles. Try to avoid handling the assassin bug as it does have a painful bite. They inject and pierce the skin of their victims, thus incapacitating them and feeding on them throughout the garden. But a garden friend. Got another friend here that we'll feature. On today's Friend or Foe, we have the 12-spotted skimmer dragonfly with a wingspan of 2 to 2.6 inches, hanging around ponds, lakes, and marshes. This hunter is a garden friend, feeding on small insects, mosquitoes, butterfly, and other dragonfly. Awesome. Check it out. We have How's It Growing and Friend or Foe, two of our mini series that we run on social media as we come across these insects and try and teach as we're learning. All right. So gardening through the seasons, right? We're coming out of winter. Thankfully, this wasn't this winter, this image here, but this was probably 2 feet of snow, 18 inches of snow with some drift that filled the garden beds. Again, we see this as awesome. It's keeping everything moist, keeping it covered, allowing the insect life, if it's not frozen solid, to be able to run through the dirt and do what it does, which is create a fantastic growing space. So we're always happy for this. Now, as we get into early spring, we've planted our seedlings. We are ready to put things into the ground. We have to make sure that the ground is ready. Again, if we're no-till, just carve out a little hole, drop the seedling in, and you're ready to go. If we're turning the beds and creating furrows, which is just rows to be able to place things in and understand where we're watering and how we're doing that, then we can do that as well. But whether it's a rake or a shovel, it's always taking some things to prepare the beds and maybe even layering that layer of compost on top to be able to feed the garden throughout the season. We talked about row covers and succession planting. Row covers again, being the high tunnel concept where we're extending the grow season, putting things under plastic. That environment can be quite difficult to manage because even if you get a rogue 50 or 60-degree day under that plastic, it can be 80 or 90 degrees and that can scorch early seedlings. So you have to monitor what you're putting out there, as well as opening it up occasionally to decrease the temperature. And high tunnels will have temperature gauges in there. When you're outside, you don't have that luxury, but when it's nice and let them breathe, get the air in there. And then succession planting. For our purposes, we don't want to grow tomatoes year over year in the same spot or zucchini year over year in the same spot because the pests, right? For zucchini, it's squash vine borer, squash bugs, cucumber beetles. They'll nest in the ground, and if you plant the same thing over there, they'll multiply, and you won't get the benefit of changing. And I'm not even saying that this 15 by 20 foot bed is enough to rotate, right? We happen to have two, and we'll crisscross, but oftentimes we're growing some of those larger volume items like tomatoes and zucchini in both beds at the same time. So, and then understanding the joy of harvesting and preserving that produce and potentially even seed saving. All of the seeds we give away through our 100K in 10 years program are seeds that we've saved to date. And we've given to thousands of people across the country. We can't believe where people have signed up and registered to be able to receive our updates and gotten information as well as a seed kit from us. To date, we've got 5 seasons of interviews. Again, emerging hip hop artists, garden interests from homestead to commercial ag, and bourbon whiskey distillers. We'll be launching our 6th season here in May or June once we get things ready and settled in the garden. So looking forward to that. And again, find us at Beets Beds Browns on your social of choice, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So again, if you're looking for a demo to grow, we have this on YouTube, Planting Your Free Seed Kit from Beets Beds and Browns. Decide what you'll plant it in. I mentioned a number of options, whether it's a coffee can or a plastic that you've gotten from some other preserved product, or even carry out from a fast food place. Anything that you can plant in a 4-inch pot as well, or a 6 flat goes into a tray. You're going to fill it with your chosen medium, right? Potting soil, compost, dirt. Make sure it's moist. Make sure it holds as well as crumbles, so it's a fine line. And then put your seed on top, cover it with a little loose dirt, water it, and then monitor it daily. Once you start growing, maybe you're following a couple garden hashtags. Maybe you start to see ingest. People are scanning in, squinting, looking. It's like me 5 minutes after I planted my seedlings to see if they sprout. I can attest that that's something that we do as well. But definitely monitor daily for moistness and growth. And if it's too moist, you maybe start to see a little mold or fungus on the top of that. If it's too dry, maybe you'll start to see a little crusting or hardening of that topsoil, which also isn't good. The seed needs to be wet in order to release its magic. And then transplanting again, if you have indoor sown seedlings and you want to transfer them into a 4-inch pot, that would be again, a success story of something like this. Each of these could be grown and transplanted into a 4-inch pot, and potentially there's multiple in one like that where you have 4 or 5 stems in one cell. So being able to separate those allows you to maybe sell them, which we're hoping to do at Porter County Earth Days this weekend. We'll have botanics, including ginger mint, elderberry tincture, maybe some elderberry syrup, and then leafy greens. We've got 2 different kinds of lettuce, some cilantro, and the ginger mint and dill will be available. Here's some cucumber again in a 4-inch pot that we had transplanted, as well as tomatoes. We've put these out. This is last year as the season warmed and we got them out so that we didn't have to use electricity to keep them growing. But we don't really plant tomatoes at this point anymore. All of them come back as volunteers from the year before. So we shake those down to the root, not to introduce any pests, and then put them in fresh dirt in the 4-inch pots, and then they root, and we can either upplant or up pot or get rid of them as soon as possible. So everybody's looking for tomatoes in the summer. Again, we're looking to grow into commercialization. We want to be able to sell the excess produce that we grow and donate as much as we can to charity. And again, foster education to get more people growing. Those are our missions. Here's the bat house I referenced earlier. Again, if you have a garage or a ladder, you're going to put this to the side of your house. It's got to be about 12 to 14 feet above ground, and bats can fly in and out of there, and it helps eliminate some of the mosquitoes. And we've got a 3/4 of an acre plot. And then this is cantaloupe that we grew last year successfully and hollowed out the seeds, rinsed and strained. And those seeds right there, we've dried and we're going to plant this year. So you talk about one cantaloupe, which was the success of our harvest for cantaloupe. Didn't have a great year last year. That's 100 seeds right there easily, right? So we can give some away, we can potentially sell or trade some, and we have enough for ourselves to put in the ground. So this is the type of abundance that we're talking about and why we want to get people growing their own food, saving their own food, storing their own food, seed saving, to become a little bit more self-dependent and self-reliant. So many ways to reach out, beetsbedsbrowns.com. Get your free seed kit if you haven't. That's part of our 100K in 10 years hashtag. We're trying to give away 100,000 seed kits in the next 10 years. And we want to get people growing their own food to become more self-reliant and get away from pesticides and chemicals from commercially grown food. Reach out, jskibby@beetsbedsbrowns.com. That's my direct email. Any questions that you have, whether it's garden, storage, music, bourbon, please reach out and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. There we go. Well, thank you guys for joining us and look forward to staying in touch. Join us at Beets Beds Browns and don't forget to get your free seed kit and get started growing today. Thank you.